Here's a cool site that AI helped me make. It doesn't look like much, but this site fills a very specific need that I had, and I'm super excited about it. See, I used to have a URL site. URL stands for Your Own URL Shortener, and it calls itself the de facto standard for self-hosted URL shorteners, and it shares some code and database structure with WordPress. For a while, there were WordPress plugins that would integrate with URLs to auto-generate a shortened URL for each of your blog posts, and there was for a time even one that would automatically post that to Twitter, until those plugins sort of fell out of maintenance and the practice fell out of style as social media platforms began enforcing their own URL shortening. However, I still use the custom URL element of it for easy to remember links for things that I share, like links to presentations I've given and a newsletter and stuff like that. Unfortunately, my URL site broke for indeterminate reasons, and I needed to get something else set up. And that's where this site fits in. I migrated that domain to Pantheon, and then I started building a replacement for this custom URL shortening or custom URL construction, really, site that I needed to have. The core functionality that I wanted is really just a redirect, and this could be handled easily by one of the many great redirect plugins available on WordPress.org. I used 10up's Safe Redirect Manager, which requires zero configuration to create redirects to any domain. The first plugin that I tried, HumanMade's HM Redirects, required a filter for any cross-domain requests, and since the bulk of what I would be doing was going to be redirects or links to external sites, this would have been super inconvenient to have to manually allow all of these domains, but Safe Redirect Manager does this out of the box. So that handles the core functionality, the biggest feature that I needed. So I started looking at things that would make this site more usable for the purpose that I wanted, which is for creating these distinct and unique and rememberable URLs. I could certainly write the code to do all these things, but with LLMs getting better about coding tasks, I decided to put ChatGPT to work to help build some of these features that I was imagining. The first thing that I wanted was a dashboard widget. It had been a while since I had actually built a dashboard widget myself, and this widget would allow me to create a new URL from the WordPress admin dashboard rather than having to go all the way into the Safe Redirect Manager plugin to create it. With some back and forth and testing, I got a dashboard widget that effectively created custom links from my site to these third-party URLs just from the first screen that you see when you log into WordPress, which made me wish for a list of these links that I could copy and paste from and use them in whatever context I wanted. Especially for links that I use frequently, this would provide me a single place to manage all of my custom links. And as soon as that was built, as soon as I had a widget that I could use to copy these custom links, I immediately started wishing for a way to favorite or star links so that the ones that I use most frequently were at the top above the others. And it seemed like a really good place to implement the sticky post functionality. Safe Redirect Manager does manage each of the redirects as a custom post type, but it does not implement sticky posts. So with AI's help, I was able to enable sticky posts and create an Ajax-based toggle that would add or remove the sticky meta value on my links and also display that in the form of a star that appears or disappears, respectively, next to that link. Now, all of this stuff was just inside of a single PHP file, including the JavaScript. If I was writing this myself, I would be inclined to structure the plugin properly with separate JS and CSS and PHP files. But for this, especially since I was using ChatGPT, it was much easier to have it all in a single file that I could say copy and paste and give it the entire context of the plugin that I was working with, rather than splitting it out into different files, which would have had to have been uploaded separately or whatever. With these two widgets built, I began thinking about how cluttered the admin dashboard was. For being a site where I'm really only doing two things, creating or using custom links, there's a lot of unnecessary stuff happening in my WordPress admin that I didn't need. And I remembered my friend Gary's talk at WordCamp US this last year about the NASA dashboard and how they created a custom dashboard interface to remove a lot of that unnecessary clutter from members of the editorial team that didn't need any of that stuff. So again, I had AI write for me a plugin that would hide everything inside of the settings menu. The idea is that if you go into the settings menu for that particular page, you would get all the stuff. You'd actually unlock that particular menu item, but if you weren't inside the settings menu for that thing, then it would just be hidden. And additionally, I also hid my dashboard widgets or any dashboard widgets that I didn't need, which was most of them. Those are actually saved in a user profile thing, so there wasn't any code that was necessary for that. I just needed to go into the appearance tab in the WordPress admin and just uncheck those things. Now, one thing that I remembered was my URL site gave me a little bookmarklet that I could use to create a URLs link from anywhere. It didn't require me to log into URLs, or maybe it did, I don't really remember, but this would mean that I could create a link to a page as I came across it or thought of it, basically sort of like a bookmarking kind of thing, reminiscent of the days when people used Delicious, if anyone watching this remembers what that was. Now, bookmarklets like this are really just bits of JavaScript code that execute inline. This one proved to be a bit more of a challenge to build as I ran into complications with authentication. Ultimately, I decided to use a custom API token solution. If the correct token was in the request, then it would just allow the request through, bypassing any other sort of authentication. I tried application passwords. I didn't want to deal with OAuth in WP in the WP API. Instead, I used Pantheon Secrets to create, to store and validate my token. For the bookmarklet to work, there needs to be a public page that no one but the bookmarklet would access that accepts post requests from the bookmarklet itself that would feed the original URL and the shortened path into the WP or the Safe Redirect Manager plugin. A side effect of this is that it creates a small little window that displays the little success message. And again, this is all coming from ChatGPT, coming up with not only the solution, albeit with some suggestions, and also the actual code that was implemented that handles this. So that's how I used AI to replicate URLs in a fresh WordPress site. Again, I could do all this stuff without the help of AI, but it wasn't something that I felt like I wanted to spend a lot of time or brain power to do, which may just be an argument against using AI if I'm being honest. Instead of writing the code and looking up references, instead I was just guiding the LLM chatbot in the direction that I wanted and letting it generate the code for me. And my stakes are pretty low because this is a personal site and it's not something that gets millions of page views or a large infrastructure based on it. But an increasing trend I'm seeing in AI-assisted development is the transition for developers from code authors to code reviewers. We all still need to sign off on the code and make sure that it works, but it's not a new concept that a lot of our code is copied or modified from something that we've built or someone else has built in the past. So why not just use AI as the source and validate that? Are you using AI-assisted tools in your development practices? How do you ensure code quality and enforce standards in your code? And what problems do you anticipate or solve for when you're using AI in your development? Here's a quick update to this. I actually found, as I was recording and editing this video, a security hole, I guess. Previously, in a previous iteration of the bookmarklet, I was passing the API key that I had created into the bookmarklet itself. The idea is that if the bookmarklet has the API key in it, then it would verify against in the code that the API key was what we get from Pantheon Secrets. I think probably somewhere along the way I decided that if you had access to my admin, then you would be able to see the API key anyway, and I was doing other things instead. But I never actually addressed the issue of if you had access to the bookmarklet code in itself. And so the bookmarklet code removed the API key, which is probably okay. It still didn't validate if a user was doing the thing that they're supposed to be doing or they're allowed to be in there at all. Among other things, I fixed this by making sure that the logged in user has access to edit pages as basically an admin to even see the bookmarklet. And then I added another layer of security that ensures that the user that is logged in is in fact one specific user, like the one specific user that is on the site. It still then means that there's a single point of failure, right? There's a single user that has all the keys to the castle. And I've already implemented two-factor authentication for this site, but again, this is just one more reason to make absolutely sure and double and triple check your code that is generated by artificial intelligence is in fact secure and valid and is good, because you can very easily get yourself into trouble if you aren't making sure and doing all the testing and ensuring that everything is the way it should be. Got thoughts? Let me know in the comments.